Well, here it is. This might be the most controversial and the most hated chapter in the history of MHA. One of the most important battles of the final war arc just came to an end, and a lot of people are mad about how it all went down. This week, My Hero Academia straight up broke the internet, and not in a good way. Multiple factions of the fandom are complaining about different things. MHA haters are clowning on the series, so let's break it all down and see what all the fuss is about. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy my MHA videos, you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now for that YouTube algorithm. And if you watch my videos but you haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, we are trying to hit 2 million subscribers here on the channel, so do it up right now. That would be an amazing achievement. Finally, this video will of course contain MHA manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution, you have been warned. In the previous chapter, we saw that Toga's quirk evolved as she unlocked Dead Man's Legion, while Ochaco's quirk awakened in a spectacular way, allowing her to make everyone around her float without even touching them. That was epic to see, it's true. But what about Ochaco's serious stab wound? She has already experienced some major blood loss, so isn't this severe injury taking a toll on her body? Save that thought, I will get back to it soon, but now let's get to the chapter. The new chapter starts off with everyone on the battlefield noticing that something is very different with Ochaco's quirk, Zero Gravity. Suddenly, all of Toga's clones are floating even though Ochaco didn't touch them, meaning that Ochaco can now basically make an entire army float up into the air from long range. This completely changes Zero Gravity and its potential on the battlefield. I mean, just imagine what kind of damage Ochaco could do with that power if she wasn't as compassionate and heroic as she is. Like, she could literally pick up hundreds of people at once and just drop them to the ground from a massive height, taking them all out instantly. Ochaco would never do something like that, of course, but if she was willing to do that, she could become a straight up killing machine. Since Toga realizes that all her clones are floating, which makes them ineffective in battle, she tries to create a bunch of new clones, but then those new ones immediately begin to float too. This means that Ochaco's quirk is working continuously, so as soon as new clones enter the area around Ochaco, they too begin to float immediately. It's almost like there's like a barrier, or dare I say domain, around her. This crazy turn of events reminds Toga of the time that her own quirk awakened and she was able to use Ochaco's quirk to kill a bunch of the Meta Liberation Army members, including Curious. Tiger and Kamui Woods are both shocked to see what's happening. Tiger says that Ochaco's limit for how much weight she can float up into the air is supposed to be only like 3 tons, and yet there she is holding up an entire army of like hundreds of clones. Tiger can't believe how far Ochaco and the other UA students have come since last year's training camp. And yes, this is a good time to remind ourselves that time passes a lot slower in the manga than it does in the real world. For them, the Forest training camp arc was just last year. We then finally get some acknowledgement from Ochaco that she is seriously injured and bleeding a lot. She thinks to herself that her body temperature is plummeting because of the blood loss, but that's not important to her now because she wants to touch the sadness deep inside Toga and make her feel better. And yes, this is the only mention we get of Ochaco's injury in the entire chapter. Toga is still resisting and trying to get away from Ochaco, but Ochaco remains attached to her with the ropes that come out of her wrists. Meanwhile, a grotesque clump of clones is floating all around them, and honestly, in some panels, these clumps of Twice clones look like some kind of creepy spaceship that is floating above the battlefield. Fans of science fiction will probably understand what I mean. Anyway, Ochaco then tries to explain her own backstory to Toga in an attempt to convince Toga that she can, in fact, understand where Toga is coming from. Ochaco says that her family is really poor, and over the years she became accustomed to seeing her parents wearing sad expressions on their faces. Their constant problems with money and struggles to provide a good life for Ochaco made them sad and exhausted, and so Ochaco decided to become a hero because she wanted to make lots of money and help her parents financially. If her parents didn't have to constantly worry about their money problems, they could be happy and smile more often. Eventually though, Ochaco realized that her parents weren't the only ones who needed a hero, implying that even though she initially wanted to become a hero in order to make money for her parents, she realized along the way that there is more to being a hero than making money. Being a true hero means saving everyone, not just her parents, and it even means saving someone whom society labels a villain. Someone like Toga. Ochaco then says the words that broke the internet and sent the MHA shipping wars into nuclear territory. Ochaco says that she fell in love with Izuku Midoriya. Well, if this surprises you, then you definitely haven't been watching the channel or paying attention to the manga, but there you have it. Of course, Ochaco and Deku have romantic crushes on each other, and here Ochaco confirms it publicly without any shadow of a doubt. Ochaco fell in love with Deku. And sure, you can say some of what she loves about Deku is his approach to heroics and his selfless commitment to saving everyone. But trying to spin a clear statement like this into her saying something like, oh, she just admires Deku's heroism and she's not romantically interested in him, would be an absolutely massive stretch. Now, of course, I know that half of MHA Twitter will be trying to make this exact stretch anyway, but it is what it is. Welcome to the MHA shipping wars. First time. In the spirit of being like Deku and trying to save everyone, Ochaco says that she wants to save Toga. That is who she is, and that is why she's here. She knows that to save Toga, she can't just defeat her or send her to Tartarus. She has to talk to Toga, and the two of them have to understand each other. So this is exactly what Ochaco tries to do. She tells Toga to tell her what she thought back then and what she thinks right now, to tell her everything. Toga doesn't want to accept Ochaco's words, but we see from all the thoughts rushing through Toga's head that Ochaco's words are clearly having an effect. We then see a really creepy and powerful panel. A monstrous Toga looms over a child, Ochaco. Monster Toga is grinning and holding a knife, while little Ochaco stands there bravely and offers her hand to Toga, presumably offering Toga her blood. And that's when Toga stops. With tears in her eyes, she explains that it's easy for her to fall in love. Animals, villains, heroes, boys, girls, they all have such beautiful blood flowing through their veins. Okay, so this once again backs up the idea that Toga operates on a different biological level from other people. She biologically craves blood like you or I might crave food or water, and to her, blood is beautiful. And so she seems to be attracted to the beautiful blood of others, and not just men and women, but even animals. It's almost like blood is the main attraction factor rather than the person themselves, although ultimately I'm sure it's like a combination of the two. Toga then says that she was always told not to smile, because as you'll recall, even her own parents told her that her smile made her look like a deviant. And because of this, Toga was always so jealous of other people who could just smile and be themselves freely. Toga then explains that Deku looks just like a boy that she really liked in the past, a boy named Saito-kun. And she really wanted to get some of this boy's blood, but she couldn't bring herself to ask him for it. Toga knew that if she asked, the boy would instantly think that she's like some sort of inhuman monster, and that she was the opposite of cute. Toga loved the League of Villains because they let her live her life the way she wanted to, the way that was natural to her. And when Deku and Ochaco criticized the way she lived her life, this hurt her so deeply because she cares about them. In that symbolic world in which Ochaco is portrayed as a child, Toga is no longer a monster and she becomes a child too. Instead of stabbing Ochaco again, Toga hugs her. Toga's inner monologue then reveals that Twice's blood is almost running out and all the clones are about to disappear. As the clones finally begin to disintegrate, Toga and Ochaco are hugging while floating through the air. Ochaco says that even though she'll never be able to replace the League of Villains for Toga, she just had to tell Toga that she has a beautiful smile. Toga then smiles again, tears flowing from her eyes, and Ochaco smiles and says, "Domain expansion." Okay, I'm kidding, but imagine that. What Ochaco really says is the cutest girl in the world. With both of the girls crying and smiling, the Twice clones vanish and this chapter comes to an end. And okay, enough delay, let's get into all the controversy. The first big controversy is that this major fight in the final arc during a major war seems to have essentially ended through the power of friendship. Toga didn't take out the heroes didn't take out Toga. Ochaco used Talk no Jutsu combined with the power of friendship to de-escalate the situation. And now that Toga is out of time when it comes to using Sadman's Parade, the battle is through. The heroes have won. I can understand where this criticism is coming from, Because yes, we are in the endgame, and the stakes should be higher than ever before. But at the same time, as soon as Ochaco and Toga became the main focus of this fight, we could have guessed that something like this would happen. Toga always desperately wanted to be Ochaco and Deku's friend, but she felt rejected by the two of them. And Ochaco always wants to resolve conflicts without having to actually harm her opponent. So the idea of them talking things out and getting to some sort of understanding makes sense based on their characters in this circumstance. Although of course Toga is a very unstable and unpredictable character, so things could have taken a darker turn if Horikoshi wanted them to. And this leads us into the next controversy. Maybe Ochaco will still suffer serious consequences as a result of this fight due to that stabbing injury she received to her abdomen. But the fact that this clearly serious injury was barely acknowledged in the last 2 chapters is pretty concerning. I mean, Ochaco has been fighting using martial arts and using her quirk, and her quirk awakened, all while seriously injured and losing a lot of blood. How could she just keep going like she doesn't have a life-threatening injury? Will the injury end up causing any serious damage for her after the fight, or will it just be forgotten, making the injury itself nothing but a cheap tactic used to increase tension? I do hope that Horikoshi follows up on this injury in some way, because this wasn't just a scratch. This is a life-threatening injury, and it shouldn't just be ignored or taken lightly. Finally, we have the dreaded shipping controversies, and these are words that all the others put together and multiplied by 100 billion. The MHA shipping wars have just reached the stage of nuclear apocalypse. This warm and emotional moment between Ochaco and Toga is being interpreted as a sign of true friendship by some, and as a sign of romantic interest by others. And the two sides are of course not taking any prisoners on social media. Oh, and that line about Ochaco falling in love with Deku? The Izuocha faction is riding high on the back of that quote, but the Deku X literally everyone else insurgents are digging in their heels for a long war of attrition. This war will only end if Deku X Ochaco finally becomes canon at the end of the story, which I personally think will happen. But if it does happen, you better believe that the other shipping factions will go berserk, everyone will be catching strays, and unfortunately some of the most unhinged shippers will likely attack Horikoshi personally because their headcanon didn't become actual canon. It seems ridiculous to think that this is even a possibility, but it's happened before. Just look at Tokyo Ghoul, and sadly I think that it's bound to happen again with MHA. The only way to avoid the backlash is for Horikoshi to make sure that no ship ends up being confirmed in the end. But that will then still make every hardcore shipper unhappy because they need that validation from the mangaka. And so the cycle of toxicity will continue even after the actual series ends. And there you have it, just a few of the major controversies that have arisen out of one of the most controversial chapters in the entire series. What do you guys think about all of this? You absolutely cannot forget to leave your thoughts down in the comments for this one. If you're looking for more epic MHA content to watch, check out my full MHA playlist, link in the description and on screen. If you guys enjoy our MHA videos, you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like right now. And if you want to help us awaken our anime YouTube quirk by reaching 2 million subscribers, hit that subscribe button right now.